Abi Shinstine's introduction to Serenbe began as many Serenbe stories do, a Google search for cool places near me. Since that fateful search in 2017, Abi has become Serenbe's jack of all trades. She's worked as a server at The Hill, then she was manager at The Hill, she was the office manager at Serenbe Real Estate, and finally, in her current role, she is now Director of Hospitality. It's a big job, overseeing all aspects of Serenbe's guest-facing businesses, from restaurants to farm tours to getaways at the inn. In this episode of Serenbe Stories, HR Director Stephanie Coyne sits down with Abi to get an inside look at all things hospitality. Abi's deep love of travel and restaurants, spoiler alert, she's been all over the world, and just in time for Halloween, we take a peek inside Serenbe's never-before-shared Department of Mysteries. Enjoy!
The Mysteries Department operates, behind the scenes of Serenbe. It operates everywhere, sort of omnipotently. Some, issues or problems or just questions that pose themselves require a little bit more investigation. And sometimes the FBI doesn't cut it. So we have what we call the Serenbe Mysteries Department.
Abi. Hi. So excited to finally have you on the podcast.
I'm excited to be here.
Abi, I know you well. We know each other well, mainly because we sit across from each other every single day, like maybe with 12 inches in between us. And I think we both find us to be like an integral part of the office scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. You often refer to us as Lorelai and Lorelai from the Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, we keep a really good baseline level of banter happening at all times.
Whether they want us to or not.
Yeah. We keep the office alive.
That's right. That's right. But our coworker, who works about 5 minutes a week in our office, he thinks we are what?
He calls us the Muppets, Statler and Waldorf, that are just old, cranky men complaining all the time.
The guys in the theater just complained about everything and never stopped talking, I think is maybe his main point.
Yeah. So that is how we enrich the office culture to some. And to Gil, who doesn't appreciate our banter as much, he doesn't come to the office anyway, so it's fine.
That's right. That's right. Well, we've been trying to get you on this podcast for a long time.
I'm elusive.
You are elusive.
Made it.
Yes. And we've been just now successful because you are so busy. It's just really hard to fit into your schedule because as our chief of hospitality, you wear many hats.
Always busy putting on a different hat.
Yep. And putting out fires and doing all those things. And we're going to get to your role as chief of hospitality in a little bit, but we like to start with sort of your path to Serenbe. How did you get to this table, this podcast, to Serenbe? And just to tee you up, we do affectionately refer to you and many people at Serenbe as a boomerang, meaning you've been at Serenbe, you left and did other things, you came back, maybe you left again, then you came back. So maybe if you could just take our listeners on your journey.
Yeah. I'll give you the whole story of how I ended up here. I moved to Georgia from New Orleans in the end of 2017. Found myself in a little town called Noonan, Georgia, that I had never heard of before. Quickly found out that it was dry, and having moved here from New Orleans, was very surprised by that and just everything about where I found myself, and quickly just started Googling like cool places near me, cool jobs, like fun, cool, hip places to work.
In not dry counties.
Yeah. And I really didn't want to commute to Atlanta. So that being my search criteria, the internet really quickly pointed me to Serenbe. And it was indeed a really cool place that I had discovered. It was a cool place to work. It was a cool place to find interesting people. And I didn't have to commute to Atlanta. It was sort of right around the corner from where I lived. So kind of dove in pretty quickly, decided that this was a place that I wanted to be and maybe put some roots down and get to know the people, and started working as a server at the Hill restaurant. After that, I bartended at the Hill restaurant. I managed at the Hill restaurant. I opened a restaurant called Halsa that is now located in the One Motto building. After that, I went to the Serenbe Real Estate office. I did a little bit of office management and leasing over there. Started property management for a couple Serenbe residents from there. I think that takes us to 2020, where I had a boomerang moment out. I think sometime around 2022, I boomeranged back in through the lovely Stephanie Coyne and Garney Nygren, sort of headhunting me out in the wild and saying, isn't Serenbe a really wonderful place? Don't you want to work here again? And yeah, I think I was ready to come back. So that is the long of the short of the long of how I've ended here at this table with you.
Yeah, you're one of those people that are, I think you maybe even are like the quintessential, if you saw it in the dictionary, like jack of all trades.
Yeah.
You know, something comes up, it's like, oh, we need somebody in the real estate office to manage XYZ. Oh, Abi would be great at that.
Yeah.
And then when you were gone for a little while and this chief of hospitality role came up, it was like an instant, ooh, wonder what Abi's doing right now. And then I was, of course, sent out to go find you and wine and dine you at a Tyrone Mexican restaurant.
Oh, so good. Yeah, that was it. That was how I came back. You wined and dined me, and happy to be here, happy to be back, and happy to just have gotten experience in like all of the different arenas around Serenbe that I have gotten experience in. I feel thankful to have worked for a company that saw that I could be a jack of all trades or a more well-rounded individual and is willing to just toss me into all of the different industries and arenas that they trust me getting tossed into.
Yeah, which I think is such a compliment to you and your skill set and your entrepreneurship and your just ability to find solutions for things. But I know like the flip side of that also is that so many things are like, I don't know, let's ask Abi.
Yeah.
Oh, ask Abi. Abi probably knows. Let's find Abi.
Yeah, the opposite side of being a jack of all trades is just sometimes feeling like a human bucket.
Yeah.
But,
right.
You know, a very utilitarian bucket, a very well-used and well-utilized bucket.
I think the other piece of it is because now cumulatively you've been here around 5 or maybe even 6 years, like when all is said and done. I've been here about 8 years. We have several coworkers who've been here 9, 10 years. And with that, I think just comes so much institutional knowledge. There's so much history. You know, you remember 2020, you remember in 2017, all of those things. And so I think a lot of times we're relied upon to just remember that stuff and sort of like, how did we get here?
Totally.
Oh, that's right. We did X that led to Y.
We are keepers of the lore and of the canon that make this place what it is.
Yes. Yes. So I want to talk about your role as chief of hospitality. But first, you kind of said you came here directly from New Orleans. I know you pretty well. And I feel like every time I mention a country or a state or an experience I had, you're like, oh yeah, I live there. Oh, I've been there. Oh, I've, experienced that same thing. So maybe remind me, where are all the places you have lived?
So I was born in Los Angeles, California, lived there until I was about 10 years old. My dad is in the movie industry. He is a stuntman and has been doing that for many, many years, like decades and decades at this point. So he did fine in LA until around like the mid 2000s. And then Hollywood sort of started to shift towards the southern United States. And it started to put down some roots in Louisiana. So we decided it was time to maybe move further south, ended up in Pensacola, Florida. And my dad just commuted to New Orleans for a while doing the movie industry thing and us living like on the beach in Florida. Did that for a few years, realized it was in the best interest to move further towards the industry. So we moved into New Orleans after that. And then since I have graduated high school, I've ping-ponged all around since then. I've lived in Richmond, Virginia, and Baltimore, Maryland, and back to New Orleans, and have now most recently found myself in South Metro Atlanta.
But haven't you also, first of all, I didn't even know about Richmond and Baltimore. That's how many different places you've been. But didn't you, towards the end of your high school career, move yourself to London?
I did that. Yeah. I spent my senior year of high school being homeschooled, quote unquote.
Right.
Homeschooled.
By life. Homeschooled by life.
By life. Homeschooled by self. Don't tell the state of Florida that. And spent a good portion of that year in Cambridge, England, just experiencing what a different city and a different country had to offer, and was really lucky that I got to land there with some really, really close friends and have a place to stay and have people to live with that looked out for me, and just got to go have a really amazing foundational international experience. Yeah, when I was about 17.
And just correct me if I'm wrong, but when did you live in Japan?
Didn't live there.
You stayed with a family.
Yeah. So my middle school basically did a foreign exchange program with a middle school in Japan. So would send us over there some summers, and then would send Japanese kids over to us in our summers. So
so you lived there for a summer.
Couple weeks. Yeah. I mean, it was a month, but they sent us over there. We stayed with host families, had to really immerse ourselves, speak the language, do the whole thing. Yeah. Yeah.
And then did you have a short stint maybe in Africa?
I've spent about a month there.
See what I mean?
No living, but I've spent time in Uganda working with different organizations there, working with women, working with children, and just getting to know some people there.
Yeah, so cool. Yeah. And beyond that, you've just traveled extensively. You've been to Australia a few times.
Yeah, I have really close friends that live in Australia. Enjoy going to see them quite a bit, and just really love traveling. Huge hobby, huge passion, just huge love of life.
And at the risk of sending you into a complete spiral, I hesitate to say this, but I'm going to. You're a huge F1 fan.
Big F1 fan. Yeah, that could cause a spiral.
And we frequently talk, mostly because you're educating me, about where all the races are. Mm-hmm. So what would be the ultimate F1 race for you to get to go to? Just money is no object.
Let me tell you, Stephanie. Let's turn in our calendars to March of 2025.
Okay.
March 15th through 17th, F1 is going to be in Melbourne, Australia, at the Melbourne Grand Prix. That would be my ideal race. It's one of my favorite cities. So to get to be there watching one of my favorite activities would be amazing.
Just all the things combined would make that the ultimate.
Yeah. That would be the best.
Yeah. All right. That's great. I knew I had forgotten a couple of different places there.
Yeah. I'm surprised at all of the record keeping of my traveling that you've done, though.
I have a feeling we didn't even mention all of them, that you're just not saying all of them.
We'll circle back.
Some more. So now you're here, and you are the first person to have this role called Chief of Hospitality.
Yeah.
And I know we could probably talk for 3 hours about everything that you do, but could you kind of give us the, elongated elevator pitch of just what you're responsible for, and maybe if any listeners don't quite understand what it means, hospitality, what that kind of covers.
Yeah, totally. So I primarily work behind the scenes and put out fires, metaphorically and physically sometimes.
And sometimes literally.
Keep wheels on buses, keep boats on water and on course for the most part. For the most part, what we consider hospitality around here is everything that is guest facing. So the inn is hospitality. All of the restaurants are hospitality. The farmhouse, Halsa, The Hill, our newest restaurant, Austin's. The gym falls under hospitality. The spa falls under hospitality, trail riding, even the farm a little bit. Whatever amenities that we have in Serenbe that aren't just for residents, but are for guests and people who just want to come and experience Serenbe too.
Sure, because they do farm tours for the public and for schools, etc. Yeah, that makes sense.
My job is kind of just keeping things on course. Anything that can really pop up in any of those arenas, be it just problems or issues or system breakdowns, pretty quick to jump in and help find solutions and just figure out alternate plans and just be a helpful set of hands, pretty much is a good summation of what I am doing at any given time, putting hands into a situation and attempting to improve it if I can.
Yeah. And one of the reasons I think that you are so successful at what you do is because you not only find a solution, but you are often thinking, okay, this is a solution for right now, but what is like the long game? Is this sustainable? Is this just a Band-Aid? And then you're kind of thinking through how this, whatever you have just solved, can like exist in perpetuity.
Yeah.
Do you think that your like that mindset is something you learned when you were younger or were taught, or it's just like you just have it in you?
That's a good question. I don't know. I feel like there's some baseline of, I think, just general anxiety that contributes to like,
Sure.
Is the solution I'm about to implement a Band-Aid, or is it like a long-term solution? And even like a means of self-preservation of like, is this something I want to have to fix 10 times? Or should I just try and implement a solution that might give us some long-term oomph here?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know when I became that way, but maybe I always have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's something, maybe ask your parents the next time you see them.
Yeah.
Have I always been this way? Just start with that.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you, thinking back, as long as I can remember, I have been this way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in your role, I think you forgot to mention that you are a partner in the Department of Mysteries.
Oh, yeah.
Of which I am the other member.
Talk about that all the time unless given explicit permission. Yeah, the Mysteries Department is our other job.
Yeah, it's our unpaid side hustle.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could tell the listeners a little bit about what we do in that department.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I won't give them too big of a look at what we do. The Mysteries Department operates, behind the scenes of Serenbe. It operates everywhere, sort of omnipotently. Some, issues or problems or just questions that pose themselves require a little bit more investigation. And sometimes the FBI doesn't cut it. So we have what we call the Serenbe Mysteries Department of you and I ready to whip out magnifying glasses or start Google searching.
Yeah. We really should get trench coats.
Really just, dissecting the big, important questions that come across our plates and Serenbe's plate.
Sure. And sometimes it's like, where does this water turn off?
Yeah.
Who ran into this fence?
Totally.
Sometimes it is the most bizarre of things. And sometimes it's like piecing together, like finding a post on a Facebook page and piecing together that this meant this. And then that's where somebody left their wrench. It is like the most bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah. The innate, just systemic knowledge that you talked about earlier that some of us have certainly is helpful in being a part of the Mysteries Department.
Yeah. And maybe important to note that we created the department. We are the members of the department.
Sure.
It does not exist on paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of the best departments do.
That's right. All right, great. So a little bit about more you as a person and not your work here. I already know the answer to this, but what kinds of stuff do you do outside of Serenbe?
I love spending time outside, love spending time with my pets, love spending time with my boyfriend.
Jeffrey. Shout out to Jeffrey.
His name is Jeffrey. Big shout out to him. Yeah, love spending time with my people and my pets in the sunshine. Really love Formula One. That's another podcast for another day because I could really go into just the love for that.
Yep.
And then I really love food and beverage, which I think really positively contributes to the job that I do here. Finding new restaurants, finding new bars, exploring Atlanta, exploring other cities, exploring all of the food and bev options that are available to me, both kind of locally and regionally and a little bit further away, is just my most favorite thing. I like finding restaurants on Instagram and then stalking them until I can get there in real life. Yeah, I like seeing that a new place is going to be opening in the next few months so I can start peeking in windows and just like seeing what they're up to. I really love just restaurants and what goes into them, and I appreciate it a lot. So I like spending time and money in those spaces.
Sure. And it must be so nice to go to, say, a new restaurant in Atlanta that you are not the boss of, not responsible for. You've touched no fires in that place for the day, and you just get to enjoy it as a guest and have that like full guest experience.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Knowing that we work as hard as we do just across Serenbe Hospitality to create experiences that are really great for people. It is always lovely to walk into a space and be able to see and acknowledge where people are trying just as hard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this might put you a little bit on the spot. And so if you don't have an answer right away, it's okay. But what is something that maybe even I would be surprised to know about you?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. I'm going to have to really think about it. You know so much about me. You are affectionately referred to as my work wife.
By our boss.
By our boss. You know everything.
It's a fairly healthy marriage.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to think on that and tell you off podcast.
So let's say you're in Atlanta and you're at a restaurant, a new restaurant, and you're chatting with the people next to you at the bar or the table or whatever. And, you know, you learn about each other and you say you work at Serenbe, and they say, oh, I've always heard of Serenbe, but I've never been there. What should I do? What's your kind of like go-to for a new Serenbe guest?
Yeah. Sorry to smack the microphone in excitement to answer this question. If it is a couple, I will like almost always encourage like a trip down to the inn, like take an overnight or a day or two, a Friday into a Saturday, and come like experience the inn, go to the restaurants, go shopping, go to the spa. I know that that is all a lot, but a lot of people who have never been like want to come here and just do all the things. And I would really like encourage that to come take 24 to 36 hours and eat in one or two of the restaurants or drink in one or two of the bars and go on a hike on some of the trails and see the pastures and the horses and stay at the inn and just get involved, like walk around and go to some of the shops. Yeah, can't recommend it enough. And if an overnight is not your speed, couldn't recommend a day trip enough. Serenbe is close enough to Atlanta and so many places that you can drive the hour, come and shop and hike and eat really good food, and more than likely meet like really amazing people that you weren't expecting to in just an afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much to do on any given day in Serenbe that a day trip would make sense, but it's nice to get that full experience and kind of feel like
totally
you live here a little bit,
a night at the inn and a chance to really immerse yourself in the culture of Serenbe is always so fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks, Abi, for coming on the Serenbe Stories podcast.
Thanks for having me. Happy to give a little look behind the Serenbe hospitality curtain.
We're going to ironically go back to our desks and sit right across from each other in just a different room.
And just keep chatting, just like this. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Happy to, get to share what the life is like here.